Very good afternoon and welcome to the third 2022 ConeX Portal LinkedIn Live session. Our special guest today is David Savage. David has extensive experience in engineering, manufacturing and leadership and provides a range of consultancy and coaching services to boost productivity and give your teams the drive to achieve. We're also joined by Russell, owner of Breakwell Paints and Arcs and Sparks, Ram from Equitas Design Engineering and Innovations, Tolu, of course, from ConeX, and as usual, doing a wonderful job of facilitating this LinkedIn Live session is Adam Payne from Factory IQ. Good afternoon, gentlemen. So, David, could I start by asking you a question, please? And I'm going to play devil's advocate here. As a manufacturer, I've taken on someone to do a job in my factory. I've trained them how to use a particular piece of machinery. Surely that's all the training they need?
Nice question, Angela. Yeah. So it's interesting when you speak to employers about what they are looking for. Very often they're saying it's attitude, it's really what they're hiring for. So they might look at your skill set, your background, but until you're in the door and they see how you work, how you approach things when they go wrong, how you communicate with your teammates, all of those kind of soft skills, those are the things which make someone more valuable to you, because things don't always go to plan and equipment gets changed and you hit problems and there can be team issues and customers can let you down. And then you need people who can also think about what's important for the team and have the drive and determination. Those are things which are harder to see on someone's at the interview stage. So in answer to your question, that's not enough. So you train them in the skill to do the job, but the behavior, that is much harder to kind of put your hand on have they got the right behaviors for my team and my company.
So how do you approach that then, David?
Well, I think there's, this is not like a new thing. I'm not bringing in rocket science here. People have been working with teams to bring out the best in them all the way. But my approach is through coaching, and coaching is where you put the problem solving down at the level of the employee. So rather than the manager, problems escalated to the manager, you're looking to coach that employee to handle those problems themselves, and often that's around their confidence, around their belief in what they can do, that they can actually pick up the phone and call a supplier and take on that problem themselves, rather than saying, boss, I don't know what to do, the machine's not working.
I think that's quite a good point, actually. I remember reading an article some years ago about Disney, and the reason they're so popular is because Disney empowers all of their employees to deal with problems rather than passing it on.
That's so true, yeah. And then manufacturers got a great, history in, creating problem solvers, not operators. If you look at Toyota, they really believed in the upside down pyramid and empowering. So we've really got something to manufacture has in its core sense. People who take manufacturing seriously really do understand this, but it can be difficult when you're up against it and there's been so much change recently. It can be difficult to not just jump in and start solving people's problems for them. It does take a lot of discipline, and we don't get trained in this sort of stuff. Frontline leaders are expected to just have the skills to empower their teams, but no one's going to teach them how to empower their teams. So that's where I see my role as being helping to create a coaching approach in the workforce, and also to coach people so that they can, solve problems themselves.
Yeah, I think it's an issue that a lot of companies come across where somebody has been promoted to a manager, but they haven't necessarily got those managerial skills.
Yeah, that's a lot of people would say, particularly in technical fields where we are, is that they're good at their job, then they get promoted, they get people reporting into them, and then doing less of what they were really good at, and they're doing more of managing other people. And they sometimes say people will sort of hit a ceiling there, the Parkins effect. But I challenge it. Often it's because they don't get the training and taught necessarily at that time, so that they can step up again. So, and I think people who are really technically orientated, they'll always be more fulfilled being perhaps on the tools or working with programming. That is probably, that's them in the best place. But some have got leadership. They do have leadership skills, but it perhaps takes a bit of training for them to really feel comfortable with it. A lot of uncomfortable situations to go through, but if they stick in it, they can get. We're all more capable than we actually think.
Absolutely, yeah. Russell, just out of interest, because obviously you're an SME, and I know with many SMEs we have few staff. So if one of our members of staff are out, it hits quite hard within the business, doesn't it? So, I mean, how do you deal with that, with training for your employees and coaching for them to make sure that they can step in where necessary or deal with problems?
We're at Breakwells. We're quite keen on cross training, so we all kind of know each other's roles. And we've got two kind of sets of employees here. We've got the people that were here before I took over the business, and people who are here who I've brought into the business. And you do see a difference with the two sides of the takeover. And neither's wrong. It's just what they're used to. The previous owner was no interest in anything other than taking the profit from the business. So me jumping in and coming on board, saying, yeah, let's train you up, and you don't really have to wait for me to give you the answers to try and empower them to solve the issues, because they have the experience, they've got the answers themselves. It's just, I think a point that David picked up on or mentioned was the confidence thing. And I've only really recently started to understand that sometimes you won't get the response you expect from people. And it's not always because they don't want to do it. They're trying to hide the lack of confidence, I guess. So the new people coming in, part of their induction is an all-round training process of all the jobs, and you're not going to be able to match the quality of product from the guys who've got here 19 years, 6 years, 20 plus years on their mixing and paint matching ability, but we'll get by, until people are back on board. We had COVID that hit us and wiped through 3 senior guys within 2 or 3 days, and thankfully the business was able to limp on, and we survived and got strong. So and that's the benefit of us SMEs. If we're doing things right, we can be multi-skilled, and that's how we can react so quickly to issues. Whereas my experience in larger manufacturing companies, they can be that large and cumbersome that they don't react, and there's an issue and it takes so long to react that a meeting and paperwork and whoever has to come in 2 or 3 days down the line, and they're just reacting to the issue. Whereas SMEs, it's kind of has to be done straight away. So just that cross training really of everybody.
Angela, can I chip in here? Sorry, Russell.
No.
Because I was thinking the same thing, and on this, John Henderson has welcomed John. You're in the chat, and he's put in what I was thinking as well. Is the challenge the word soft? Because we say soft skills. What are your thoughts, David, on that?
So is the chat? What do you mean by that? Who's the challenge for, Adam?
Well, I would look for. Yeah, because we call it soft skills, don't we? Call it hard skills. Is that part of the problem from a business perspective in this definition of soft and hard skills, and why we use that terminology? Is that a blocker? Is that a roadblocker, or is it more of an opener? I don't know. That's just a question.
I think I think it can be a labelling problem, and I think that's hard, certainly, to when you're making business cases for people on training. I think that is quite a challenging thing, because the return on that investment is harder to link straight through, and although it is quite well documented. So I do a lot of work for a movement called Engage for Success, and they look at how employee engagement correlates to productivity, so how engaged they are. So you could say, well, what's the benefit of you giving, for example, the bigger picture to your staff? So we're going to involve the team, we're going to sit down, we're going to explain the bigger picture of the organization, where our business is going. We're going to take 2 hours in the day to do that. Okay, so that's 2 hours of downtime. We're going to stop the machines, and we're going to give people context where the business is going. So, well, what's the return on that? And yet companies who fail to engage the team, they are less productive. So somewhere in the system, a few hours later, an employee who has got, I get what the company's trying to do now, and the customer's ringing up and asking me for something a bit out of the ordinary, I'm going to say yes, because I see where the business is going. And then 3 months later, they get a new customer because of their positivity on the phone, and it's good for the business. So that link is quite a long way away, but it is definitely, if you look at the report Nailing the Evidence, they go through that, how the correlation engaged employees and productivity, customer satisfaction, reduction in mistakes, longer retention time for employees, all of these different hard facts stack up against people who are engaged in their job. And that is people who have ownership, who feel empowered, who feel they can make a difference. All of those things will be good for business, and that is hard hitting, which is the title of this thing.
I think it's not where it's not just the company, though, is it? And giving them the bigger picture of the company, it's where they actually sit within that big picture, and the effect their work has on that big picture as well is important, isn't it? Don't you think?
It's so important. So if you go into the Zimmer factory, which makes Zimmer frames, they have a big thing on the wall, which made for my grandmother. So they've thought about, what is it, what are we doing? And you can, for example, train people in Six Sigma or some quality improvement activity. But the thing which kind of really makes an employee on that split-second choice will be, do they really take pride in their job? Do they believe in what they're doing? And it's really hard to say, well, how that would directly link to quality, but it does. We all know that it's really kind of employee pride which drives good quality, and then also having the systems to underpin it. We need both. I'm not saying we don't need hard skills, but I think we also need to invest in the soft skills, especially with now when we're moving into quite fast changes and people are integrating new software systems, lots of change. But if people aren't on board and get the bigger picture, they can be very resistant to these technological changes as well.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, did I interrupt somebody there?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Russell a question, like a follow-up to what he mentioned earlier about cross-training. So I've been thinking, especially for small businesses, right? So obviously you're still growing, you have limited staff, and at some point people might have to, become jack of multiple trades at some point. But how do you leverage that against the need to focus on one thing to increase your productivity? Because if you spread yourself too thin, you won't be able to be as effective in each of them, especially like if you spread yourself too thin over a short period of time. So how do you balance the need to have multi-capable staff, but also the need to have those staff effective in their fundamental roles?
It's difficult getting that balance, I think. and I'm not sure. I've still found what the answer is to that. Really, it changes quite a lot for me, really. So it's a real, it kind of where the most demand is coming from, I guess, at that point in time. So if there's somebody out, or we spot a skills gap, somebody being out or has left the business, then we have to focus on that area and try and fill that skills gap as much as we can. Before then, it's spinning all the plates, isn't it? You know, you're trying to cover this skills shortage, and then the next thing you know, over the corner of your shoulder is the other plate's about to drop off the growth, etc., of the business. But I think for me, I'm quite happy to see the growth of the business short term slow up while we plug that skills gap, because I know longer term the business will become stronger for it. So that the plate that I'm spinning may really wobble right on the edge of the rim, but I know X amount of time down the road, because we've upskilled the people around us, we will be stronger for it longer term. So different answers and different stages in the process, I guess. And then always the good point is, I always think, and I'm being a bit flippant, but if that plate does drop, then it kind of means that, depending on which plate it is, the person you're trying to upskill, it may not be the right person for your business. That you've tried as much as you can, and they might not be right person, that no matter what you do or try, and you have to be mindful of that as well, that you don't spend all that time trying to upskill them, that if for whatever reason then they're not interested in being upskilled, then you have to make those decisions along the way, you know. So yeah, different answers at different points in the process, I guess.
Yeah, so it's more about like prioritizing.
Yeah,
Looking
and
up.
that changes at whatever the demand is of that day. And I guess, as I pointed out earlier, I think that's the one of the great things as an SME is that we can react really quickly.
Yeah, the agility. Rob, what about you?
Right. Hello, everybody. Russell, valid points there. I'll come to them in a minute. So, if we look at the manufacturing companies as a rule over the decades, if you like, we've all been tasked with doing one specific operation on one specific machine. You'll have a miller, you'll have a turner, you'll have a thread cutter, gear hopper, and so forth. Now, over these decades of doing that, the traditional, the famous phrase has come into play, which is, "That's not my job." Now, as we move towards the new world where, everybody is expected to do a lot more and contribute together, how can we change the conversation from "that's not my job" to "this is everybody's job, we will pitch in"? That starts with leadership at the top. And the way I look at leadership is you lead from the top, set the vision and set the common goal and objectives, but you empower from the bottom up. Give everybody the opportunity to be a part of the decision making process, and a big part of it is what I call as de-risking the decision of the people when they're trying to be empowered. Like, right, you give the people the assurance, you make a decision, and if the decision turns out to be a bad decision, that's on us, not on you, because you're still learning how to make decisions. Next thing is, we don't just look at job skills, how to operate a machine or anything. And I won't call it soft skills, I call it life skills. Things like critical thinking, things like analytical reasoning, things like what is it that we need to do, a sense of ownership of given problems and solutions. Those are the kind of things that we need to be looking at, because skills will change. Technical skills will change. When I was doing engineering 20 years ago, 25 years ago in India, we were taught how to operate a lathe, how to operate a foundry, and we didn't even know things like FEA back then. FEA was still a very nascent thing. Today, as mechanical engineers, we do a lot of computer-based modeling. We're talking Industry 4, digital twins and all that. We hardly had computers. We had maybe one or two computers in the labs. So the technical skills that we're going to teach our people are going to change. Let's not worry too much about them. Yes, it's a short-term fix, but for the medium and long term, we need to teach them life skills like mental resilience and toughness, so that what that will give them is, no matter what the technical requirements are going forward in the future, if they have the right mindset and the right attitude, They will go ahead, find out what they need to upskill themselves in, and show the initiative and do it. Now, what Russell mentioned just before I spoke is about having to let go of people. Now, when it comes to skills, there are two things that I've learned. One is the ability, the other one is the willingness. Ability is the bit that we can train people in, which is building up ability. I mean, when we were born, when we were children, we didn't have the ability to read or write. We were taught that ability to read and write. The other bit is the willingness, is the sheer desire of the person to be taught or to do the job. Now, ability can be coached, whereas a lack of desire, there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. That is a lot more dangerous to any organization than a lack of ability. That's what we need to focus on and try and balance things. I hope I've made sense.
Yep, absolutely. And quite interesting, actually, Ram, how you said about soft skills are really life skills. I actually visited one of our local colleges a few months ago, and one of the things the tutor did say to me, one of their biggest concerns is the soft skills that are lacking in the students, or as you say, life skills, particularly if they haven't had a good home life, you know, and haven't had that encouragement or support from a parent within the home. Then it can affect those soft skills or life skills, can't it? And I think it's something, you know, I don't know, you know, David, where that you've sort of seen that as well within your work in the younger generation, that they are lacking in those skills.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big topic, Angela, but I think my immediate reaction is, I think, you know, something like confidence is like, so a lot of that you say is like from your home, how much you're backed up if people believed in you. It's not just that, but I think that has a major role to play. And most people will say their most inspiring boss would have been someone who believed in them. That's kind of what they did mostly, was believe in them. So, and back to Russell's point about dropping plates, that is how we react to things when they're wrong. For example, how a boss reacts if someone does something for the first time. They try something out, they've never done it before, and they do something and they get it wrong, and there's a huge explosion, and they get ripped apart, blamed, and all the rest of it. You know, you're basically taking a little bit of confidence and smashing it down, and that's where you have to be mindful as a leader. What vibes are you giving off? Are you making it safe for people to make, you know, explore, to find new ways of doing stuff? Or are you going to be someone who wants to keep control all the time? So you have to be, I think it's very important how we react when publishing, you know, entrepreneurialism or innovation. How do you react to that in the workplace? That will create the culture of what is accepted around here. So, you know, employees know if they're going to get their head bitten off and they've had it once, then in goes all the ideas, in goes all the kind of little solutions, and they just do what they're told. That's exactly what you don't want. You want people to actually think for themselves.
Yep. Sorry, Angela. I just wanted to contribute to this because you mentioned schools, and it's something that I've had some time thinking about, and I talk to my younger ones about, because schools, especially from secondary school and even some universities, they essentially teach us uniformity and conformity, right? You want to even use the bathroom, you have to take permission. Everything you do is always assessed. There is little avenue for individual thinking and individual, like, creativity. So I don't know, what do you think? Are there ways schools can combat this? Because at the same time, they're trying to reach a lot of people, thousands of people, and the only effective way to, you can't have one teacher per student in every school. You can't, like, there still has to be a form of uniformity. But how do we bridge that gap where, while you're attending to multiple people at the same time, you're also not killing their individuality by putting all these rules and things in place?
I think it's a fine balance, isn't it? David, did you want to jump in there?
Well, I'm not going to advise schools what to do, but I think it's a really good point, Tolu. I think I like, there's a very good, if you Google Carol Dweck. She wrote this thing, this responses. So someone did a test. She thought and say you didn't. Essentially, you got pass or fail, and she would use the phrase "not yet," not good enough yet. So, and that creates this line, like, you keep trying, you'll get there. You know? It's rather than you failed and that's the end. Not yet. You haven't passed yet. And do some more work. And there's some really interesting work with primary schools, and take some schools which had terrible ratings and push them up through this believing in the kids and focusing on what they were good at rather than they were bad at. Amazing results that she got. I recommend that as such a Carol Dweck.
That sounds good. And I think, we can all relate to, as you were saying earlier, David, where, you get a manager who's controlling, who shouts you down. I think we've all come across a manager like that, and I know from my own personal experience, one of my daughters had a manager who was just incredibly controlling and just absolutely melted my daughter down, in the most dreadful way. And how do you expect to get the best out of your employees like that? It just doesn't happen. So it's I think it's really important, as you say, that we work on the life skills of the youngsters, that we work on the skills of management of employees. I think it's something that we all need to constantly be working on. We all need the coaching, we all need the training to make better us and to make things better for the company, without doubt. And I going back to talking about confidence as well, I can fully understand that. I mean, I'm quite lucky, not that you'll realize this, but I am actually quite a confident person. You probably never would have guessed that. So for me, it's never been an issue. But there are so many times I've worked with people and they've asked me a question about something, and I've said, you actually know the answer, don't you? And they're like, and I say, you do, but you just haven't got the belief in your own ability. You need to have that confidence. And I think it's just encouraging people and say, you do know this, have that confidence in yourself. And it's really important.
And just to build on that, Angela, I think what I see with coaches, you had a sort of upper belief, this kind of a limiting belief. You position, this is the kind of person I am, and it's good coaching. You can challenge that, because it's amazing how strong that sense is. If that's where you peg yourself, it's amazing how people's income, for example, will rise, support their family, and then it sort of stops. And it's really because they've actually come to some sense this is a good, this is kind of an equilibrium thing. And to go to the next level, you need to have confidence that you are actually worthy of another level of income, or your free time can be more fun, or whatever it is. It's almost like that little bit of kind of voice in your head saying you can't go further than this. You've hit the buffer, and a good coach will help you challenge that and break through that up in it. Does that make any sense to you?
It certainly does. Yes, it certainly does. Well, I have to say, it's been really interesting. It's been really good to actually sit and talk about these things, because I think a lot of businesses and a lot of people don't. A lot of people think that everything's fine in their factory, instead of actually, stop being an ostrich, take your head out of the sand and look at what your employees need. Look at how you can make your business better by empowering your employees. It's just really important. And I think we need more open discussions like that, without a doubt. But unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. I'd really like to thank all of our guests for joining us. And of course, thanks to those of you who commented and asked questions. Great to see you here again. And I hope some of you will be watching Catch Up a bit later on today. Thanks, David, for coming and being our special guest. It was very interesting. If anybody would like to connect with David, I'm sure he'll drop his details in the comments below after we've finished. If you'd like to know more about ConeX Portal and how it's working with SMEs in UK manufacturing, how you can get involved, then please either contact myself or Sam Bainham, and we'd be happy to talk to you about how we can help you. So thanks again, and see you all soon.
See you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Nice to see you guys. See